Okay, good luck.
Thanks. All right. Is it on? You can hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wampac. My name is Brad Niva. I'm the Executive Director of the Big Sky Chamber of Commerce, as well as the tourism arm known as Visit Big Sky. We thank you for coming tonight. Tonight is an inaugural event for us. Once upon a time, our office used to put on an event called the Community Building Forum, and Community Building Forum was a long time event that we talked about construction and the community of Big Sky. But then about 3 years ago, between BizRad and the Chamber, we launched Community Week, which is now October, and it's usually the first or second week of October. And we merged the Community Building Forum into Community Week. Hence, now we don't have exactly an evening event specifically to business or construction and things like that. So this is our brand new event called The Business of Big Sky. Tonight's focus is on small business, specifically in Big Sky. We have a lot of different business entities, from small 3 and 4 employees all the way up to some companies that have 500 to 1,000 employees. But tonight we really wanted to focus on small business specifically, how businesses are successful, what kind of things they've had to change, especially coming out of COVID. And then at the same time, we want to understand what is our economy at Big Sky. And so we have an opportunity tonight to look at some of the data that is collected about Big Sky. So we have first speaker tonight, Jackie Haines, who works for BizRad, Big Sky Resort, I need to remember, I should know that, I just say BizRad all the time. Big Sky Resort Area District. We'll be spending the first 45 minutes kind of giving some data about Big Sky, and then our second half will be 4 business owners here in Big Sky that live here, who have employees, have their business, and are successful in what they do in Big Sky. So we're going to share those stories tonight as well. We are live streaming this right now on YouTube, and as well as this will be available after tonight. It'll live forever on YouTube, as well as on the Big Sky Chamber website that you can download and watch it then. So all of our events, though, don't happen without really good sponsors, and I just want to take a second to thank our sponsors, and I got my pages in the wrong order here. So first of all, we have a great sponsor always throughout the year for the Chamber, and that's Lone Mountain Land, which is always our title sponsor. We have some great underwriting sponsors. Town Center is supporting our event, the Montage from Big Sky, and Big Sky Real Estate as well. Tonight's beverages outside in the lobby are sponsored by the Montana Title and Escrow, and then we have two great vendor sponsors. That's Three Rivers Communication and BG Wolf Creek. So thank you. If you have time to visit with our sponsors out in the lobby, we always appreciate that. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. I'm a little rusty on this. I apologize. I should have been a little better organized. There we go. So our first speaker tonight is Jackie Haines. You may know Jackie. She has worked for the Northern Rocky Mountain Economic Development District based in Bozeman, and was also the Economic Development Director with a group called HRDC, which has been very popular within the Gallatin Valley. In this role, she has founded a homeless youth shelter in Bozeman. She's also facilitated volunteer income tax assistance program. Jackie received her master's degree in applied economics from Montana State University. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, exploring the Montana outdoors, and going on hikes with her favorite golden doodle, June. However, in the last 30 days, Jackie has a new role, and Jackie is now the Director of Economic and Strategic Development at BizRad, right here in Big Sky. So I like to think of Jackie as the smartest person in Big Sky, so please welcome Jackie Haines.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming tonight, and I just want to take a moment and thank the Chamber for their hard work in putting on this event and bringing us together to talk about business. So thank you guys for your hard work and for having me up here to speak to you tonight. As Brad mentioned, I'm going to just talk a little bit about my background here for a second. So I got my master's in economics, and my master's thesis was looking at how equal pay laws affected gender concentration in occupations. And so I've been looking at labor force data for a long time, and hopefully tonight we get to break the data down into like bite-sized and understandable pieces. I promise I'm not going to try to put you to sleep tonight, but if I know your name, I might call you out to make sure you're stayed awake. With HRDC, I ran an income tax assistance program, and so we did over 800 income taxes a year for that. So I got to really build a lot of knowledge around income taxes. I ran a Department of Labor teen workforce program, so I built a lot of information about working with Department of Labor through the state. We ran a foster youth program that was helping kids transition out of care, and started a homeless youth shelter. And then in my last role with Northern Rocky Mountain Economic Development District, I worked across Gallatin Park and Madison counties, and in that role we did a lot of partnership with BizRad. So you might have seen me on this stage previously talking about the Big Sky Economic Profile. 2 years ago, I think I did that at Community Week. And then this last year, we did a Big Sky childcare industry study, and that got about 5 minutes at Community Week on a panel this year, but we're gonna dive into some of that data. If you haven't gone and read that report, we're gonna talk about some of that cool stuff tonight. So, just wanted to highlight that for a second. So one of the things that I think is really important when we start talking about data, and I think that we as the general public and media does a really terrible job at, is understanding the data. Data is really easy to manipulate to get what you want to say with it, but it's important to understand what you can say with data and what you cannot say with data. So I wanted to start by explaining that first. There is lots of amazing publicly available data out there, and so if you have a hard time sleeping, I would recommend you go look some of these websites up. You will have a great night's sleep once you dive in. But data that you can get that's really, really easy and at your fingertips is through the Census Bureau. And over here on some of those slides, let's see if I have a laser pointer. I did earlier, yeah. So you can kind of see I just screenshotted it, and what you want to do is you want to click on Advanced Search and then click Place. You can click Big Sky, and I'll talk about that in a second. Bureau of Labor and Statistics has a lot of great labor data, and then the Bureau of Economic Analysis does sort of more macroeconomic trends, so you can look at GDP and industry analysis. And our state actually kicks out some really great data too. The Montana Department of Labor has what they call labor market information, or LMI, and they have an interactive web page. You can go click and you can refine your search and what you want to see, and it's really amazing. Recently, I just discovered the Montana Department of Revenue does a biannual report, and they have sections that talk through all the details of everything you ever wanted to know about your property taxes or alcohol taxes or gas tax. And they do a great job breaking that down and explaining it to laymen. And so I have learned an enormous amount from these reports. Highly recommend them. And then Montana Department of Commerce also publishes lodging tax information. And so that is some data that's available locally. And one of the things that we are always talking about with Big Sky is how to get data that is specific to Big Sky. Because a lot of the federal data, especially like Bureau of Labor and Statistics, only has data that's available at the county level. And so we can't drill down any more than that. And so we spent a lot of time at BizRad thinking about how do we drill down and get data that's specific to Big Sky. So as we talk through this, a lot of the presentation tonight will use Census Bureau data. And so I'm going to talk specifically about some of the limitations to that. The first thing is that Census Bureau draws a boundary around unincorporated areas, and they call it a CDP, a Census Designated Place. And this is the map of the Big Sky Census Designated Place. That line in the middle is the county boundary there. So what you can see immediately is this little cutoff here excludes Yellowstone Club. And so it's important to know the data is limited. It does exclude the Yellowstone Club part of just from the numbers. The Census Bureau also publishes different surveys. So the first survey that we all know is the decennial census. So that happens once every 10 years. But they publish a survey that is in between. It's called the American Community Survey, or ACS, and that's published every year. And what they basically do is they look at different sort of like smaller sample sizes, and then they make trends over it. So they use a fancy formula to estimate trends. And so when you go to look at the data, you have a choice between what they call a 1-year estimate or a 5-year estimate. 5-year estimates are better for your rural areas because they average the trend over a 5-year period instead of a 1-year period. And so, fun facts for data today: if you weren't a data nerd before, you are now. So that's important to know as we talk through this, and I just want you to understand kind of more about data and more about limitations of it. So locally, we have some data that is available that's really cool, but it takes all of you to support the locally available data sources. One of the first and best places that we get data from is actually BizRad. So every year, businesses have to go and register with BizRad, and we collect some data from them. And then also, as nonprofits and government entities apply to BizRad for funding, we collect some data from their program activities and things like that. Another great source of locally available data is the county websites. That is not saying how amazing those websites are to use, but you can get data from them about property taxes and things like that. The other thing that's great is the Big Sky Chamber looks at a lot of data. So they look at visa data and cell phone data to look at visitor trends and how people are moving through the area. But one of the most important things that we'll talk a little bit today are the community surveys that you take. So I know that survey fatigue feels like a real thing, but continue to take surveys because they are really, really important, especially for Big Sky. They tell us a lot about the community. All right, so we're just gonna go talk through a little bit of an overview of Big Sky, what the data tells us, and then how to use this data when you're thinking about your workforce, or making hiring decisions or recruitment decisions, and also some employee retention strategies. So I just want to highlight a few things on this page. The first is the population growth. So this is actually really specialized data, especially right here. We worked with the Montana Department of Commerce, and they took census data and overlaid it with structure data to basically build population growth for the BizRad boundary. And so we were able to break it down by county, and we can see that over a 10-year period, Big Sky grew 54%, which is huge. Because sort of the rule of thumb of what sustainable growth is, economists say, is about 1% year over year. So that's a lot more than 1% year over year. And you can see it's almost 5 times that of Madison County's growth, the countywide growth here, and not quite double Gallatin County growth. So the counties think they are growing really fast, but actually you guys are really growing very fast. And we're going to book in this presentation. I just want to point this out. The Big Sky population as a percentage of the 2-county total here is 3%. So remember that number because we're going to end with that number. A few other things to note is the median age. So the reason median age is helpful here is it tells you something about what people are doing in the area, and that can tell you something about your workforce. So when you have a young workforce, like 33 or 37 years old, those are people that are building families. They're thinking about families, they're thinking about kids, whereas the median age of 54 is in a very different phase and stage of their life. So they're thinking more about retirement and what the end of their career looks like. And so if you're recruiting your workforce from Madison County, you might want to think about offering them different services or supports than you might for a workforce that was in Gallatin County. On here I have the number of households that are in each community. Just to note, a household in the census is not considered a family. It's just how many people are under one roof. And then you have the median household income, which is just interesting to see kind of where your markers are at and how you're comparing to the rest of the region. But on this is actually, I think the most interesting is the number of households with children. And so when you look at it as a percentage of total households in the community, Big Sky has 18.7% of their households are with children. Gallatin County has 25% and Madison County has 14%. So that kind of tells me actually households with children are living more in Gallatin Valley and less in Big Sky. But it is interesting to note then the percent makeup, right? So your younger households with kids that are 6 and younger have a higher percentage in Big Sky than in the 2 counties. And you also have 50% of your households with children have kids that are 6 to 17 years old. And so childcare is a very real part of the workforce that is living and working in Big Sky. And so that has to really be part of our conversations when we're talking about hiring and workforce retention. Okay, this is a busy slide, but don't worry, I'm going to talk you through it. One of the things, this is maybe like my economics sort of pet peeve, but we always hear politicians talk about unemployment rate and how amazing unemployment rate is and how low it is. But I think that we need to be thinking about our metrics better, and we need to be understanding what unemployment actually means. And so the way that the unemployment statistic is calculated is it's basically of all people working, who's looking for work. And so to be considered unemployed, you have to be actively looking for work. The second you stop actively looking for work, you drop out of that statistic. And so that's important because during COVID, we saw a lot of people decide to step out of the workforce to stay at home and take care of their kids. Or we saw a lot of people decide to retire early. And so what happens is that person is no longer counted in the unemployment statistic. And so I think to have better conversations as a community and as a society, we actually need to be talking about labor force participation rates. And what labor force participation rates are is, and how they're calculated, is they say, okay, of all the population age 16 through 65, what's the percent working? And you're considered working if you're employed or unemployed. And so that's really important because it then starts to capture who's not working in society, right? And that's the thing we've been hearing media talk a lot about, is like people don't work anymore. That is not true. And here are the numbers to prove to you that that is not true and why it's not true. So over here, I just simply, for your knowledge, I captured like the population 16 plus. So those are the numbers that are going in to calculate these things. And then you can see the unemployment rates, and you look at 1.7% and how that's only 42 people that are unemployed, and go, wow, there's no one to hire. Well, let's talk about labor force participation rates, because it's like, who isn't working, right? So just to set a baseline, the US labor force participation rate is 63.5% right now. And that hovers right around 60%. That's kind of a long-term average, is about 60%. And same, you can see Montana's statewide, their labor force participation rate is 63%. But you have Gallatin's at 71%, and then you have Big Sky's at 80%. And Madison's is actually below the average. And so there are typically 5 reasons why someone is not working. So the first is they're going to school, they're in college. The second is they're retired. The third is they are staying at home to take care of their family, whether it's kids or aging parents. The fourth is, oh man, I just blanked. There's usually then an other category too. There's another reason, I can't remember what number 4 is. And then there's an other category of why people aren't participating in the labor force, usually like transportation or something like that. And so there are good reasons why people are not participating in the labor force. And you can think about that to understand how to tap an unused part of the labor force who is not working, and how can you use that data to then attract them into the workforce and attract them to your business, right? And so there's lots of different ways you can break down labor force participation rates to start kind of getting curious about who is not working and why aren't they working. And so this big graph here is looking at, is breaking it down over ages. And so we can see like 16 to 19-year-olds, you know, they're in high school, and actually in Madison County, they have a really high labor force participation rate of 16 to 19-year-olds, which is fascinating. And then you'll see too, this Big Sky is 0%, and that is just a small sample size for Big Sky, and so I don't think it's actually 0%, but this is where understanding the limitations of the data is important. And then that jumps up. So you see, you know, your 20 to 24-year-olds, there's not much difference between the 3 counties there. Kind of same with 25 to 29. Not a lot of difference between the 3 counties, but still really high when only, you know, 9% of the labor force isn't working of that age group. Everybody's pretty much working, really. And then 30 to 34, they're still pretty high. 82% is still pretty high, even though Madison County is a little lower. And then where we start to see the differences is in this 55 to 64 age group. Madison County is a lot lower than Gallatin or Big Sky. And so maybe what businesses can do is think about how do you offer services to that aging workforce to bring them back in. Is it flexible schedules? Is it a cush retirement package? You know, what does that demographic want and what do they need? And then can we hire or recruit? Can you recruit a certain way to target those individuals? Things like that. I like labor force participation rates. You can tell I kind of geek out on it. All right, and then we can also break down by gender. And so this is actually the labor force participation of women with children. So of all women with children, who is working and who is not. And in Big Sky, 96.8% of women with children in Big Sky are working. That is insane. That is outrageous. A lot of women with children are working in this community. But in Madison County, you see that it's only 51%. And so as a business, you can kind of think, oh, maybe that is an underutilized part of the labor force that if I offered some kind of childcare support to, they might actually come to work for me because maybe children is something that is actually keeping them from the labor force. In labor discussions, there's something called unemployed and then underemployed. And underemployed are people that are working less than 40 hours a week. So in a really tight labor market like the one we're in, we want to be thinking about not only how do we attract the people that aren't working, but how do we encourage those that are working to maybe get up to 40 hours a week? What are the supports that they need? Some of the things that I've done a lot of work in the childcare space and economic development, and some of the things that we've talked about are how businesses can partner with each other. So other communities around the state are looking at childcare co-ops established by businesses that partner together to basically offer childcare support to to their employees. And so maybe there are conversations around partnerships with businesses that have strange hours that childcare typically doesn't serve, that maybe they can talk about serving together. So as I mentioned, we did a childcare industry report. In that we partnered with the Chamber and YCCF and a few other entities to do a robust study of this. And one of the things that we did was we issued a community survey. And so these were just two really high points that I pulled from the community survey. But we had about 250 responses from members of the community. And one of the things that we asked was, has childcare ever affected your ability to work? And this is an outstanding number. 73% of respondents said yes. And so that's telling me like childcare is a major issue for the workforce. And then we also asked the barriers that were faced when accessing childcare. And the top two responses were cost and hours and days of operation. And so in my reading and in my research, two of the things that are recommended that are what I consider like low-hanging fruit for businesses are offering your employees a dependent care savings account. It works very similar to a healthcare HSA, where your contributions are tax deductible, and you can't get a dependent care savings account without your employer sponsoring that account. And the other sort of perk to that is that all dependents are eligible. So if you have aging parents and you're spending that money on your aging parents, those costs are eligible for that account. It's not just for children. The other thing that actually research really shows is that the more that employers can offer stable and predictable work schedules for employees, that really, really helps them. Just manage the childcare, manage the demands, and who's taking care of the kids. And so that has come back as, it seems obvious when you say it, but it's harder to do in practice. And so that's also a really important thing to note, and I think does help with childcare or workforce retention, and it really ties to this. Like if you have 73% of your workforce that's affected by childcare, we want to be thinking about how to support them. Okay, so enough on childcare. The other thing the Census Bureau reports on is health insurance, which is really sort of interesting sometimes, but I wanted to show you this data because I think people don't realize like how much the Census Bureau really collects. So I have it broken down into 3 buckets. The first is your employed bucket, unemployed, and then not in the labor force. And you guys already know what not in the labor force means because we just talked about it, which is so exciting. So just a few things to highlight here. Maybe health insurance can be a recruitment tool. And so let's see. Madison County has a lot lower rates of private health insurance for the employed people. And higher rates of no insurance. And so maybe that is a strategy there, is offering, maybe attracting the workforce in Madison County using health insurance. We also see in Gallatin County too, the unemployed, there's a higher percent of having no health insurance. And then in Madison County of unemployed, there's a much higher rate, Big Sky too, much higher rate with public coverage instead of private health insurance. And then not in the labor force, I'll be honest, I was really surprised by this data, that so many people that are not in the labor force have private health insurance coverage. I'm guessing they get it through either a parent or a partner. But there's also high rates of public coverage in Madison County and Gallatin County. So health insurance could be a strategy, offering health insurance could be a strategy to use to recruit and retain your workforce. And so now that we've spent all this time talking about workforce, let's talk about where does the workforce live, right? We know that the Canyon is this insane drive in the morning and everybody's in commuting, but like, what does that mean exactly? Is it just this massive ebb and flow of people? What do we know? So this is a Census Bureau, it's called On the Map tool, and this is an inflow and outflow graphic. It shows the light green is basically those that live in Big Sky but travel to work outside of Big Sky. So they might be working for the county or who knows, at Zoot or something. And then the medium green are those that live in Big Sky and work in Big Sky. And then the dark green are those that live outside of Big Sky and commute in. And so you can see the percentages here. 73, 74% of the workforce travels in. And one thing that's important to note is that 3,300 statistic, that's estimated number of jobs, that is full-time year-round. So that is not seasonal workforce. The most data places have a really hard time capturing seasonal workforce, and so it's sort of hard to find in publicly available data, but we're going to talk about that later. So I've been looking at this graph for a while, and finally I got curious, like, well, this is nice to know how many people come in, but where do they come in from? And so one of the things that we've done is we reached out to some of the largest employers in Big Sky and asked them if they could give us the zip code data for employees. So where are people's permanent addresses? Don't worry, I didn't get your name, I didn't get your address, I just got your zip code. And then we put it on a heat map. And so you can see actually that people live all around Montana, but we wanted to zoom in and kind of look at this corridor, which we all know lots of people are living and driving this corridor every day. So you can see over here the breakdown by zip code and by county. And you can see that a majority of the people that are driving to Big Sky live in Gallatin County. No surprise, but now it's confirmed through data. 59718 and 59715 are the highest zip codes with employees in them, and then that's followed by Belgrade at 59714 there. So this is a fun and interesting way to visualize it, but it does highlight how important it is for businesses to support transportation for their employees and support transportation initiatives within the community, because when 75% of your workforce in commutes, it's super important that we're all thinking about multiple ways to solve the transportation problems. And then just stepping out a little bit more to look at kind of the labor force like holistically as a whole. This data is not census data, it's Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and so this is just for the county, and it gives us a bit of a larger perspective on the labor force. One of the things you'll initially see is how each of these years gets higher, right? So that means the labor force is growing year over year in Gallatin County. And then I also want to note, you'll see this big drop off here in April. We all know that that's COVID. It does not drop to zero. This axis starts at 60,000. So there was about a 10,000 jobs lost during COVID, but it was actually gained back by, is that August or August right in there? But it didn't exceed the levels from the year before. And then you'll also see too that 2021 starts below the level that was the labor force level that was at 2020. And then this also just shows seasonality of the workforce, you know, like when is the peak hiring season? So peak employment is about July, and then it kind of dips off after that. And so maybe that's one strategy you can use is like, can you hire before the peak hits? Something like that. So then I did that for Madison County too, and Madison County's labor force is a little bit more volatile and not as fast growing as Gallatin County's. So you see that while it is still growing, because year over year, the lines sort of climb up this graph, you can also see there's massive dips that happen here. So this is really where, and I do think this is the Big Sky effect. So you have a large workforce that's working in the winter and then drops off in the spring, and you get some seasonal travel coming in, and I'm likely to Ennis to fish in the summer and to go to the park and see the region, and then that kind of dips off after the summer, and then it climbs again as we start into the ski season. So I think you see much more of the Big Sky seasonal effect in this graph than you do in the Gallatin County graph. And now this is brand new data, never before seen, so you all should feel very special. This is exciting. This is BizRad data. So this is an example of how we can use what we collect locally. So as I mentioned before, each year businesses register with BizRad. And so we can say that 810 businesses in 2023 registered with BizRad. One thing that's important to note, again, limitations on your data, is that this also includes businesses that might show up to a farmer's market one time and then not do regular business year round. So that's important to note when you're thinking about, okay, 810 businesses, that some of them are more active than others, right? There's that spectrum and that range. One thing that we ask when the businesses register is how many employees do you have in general? So the businesses together have 15,000 employees. That does not mean they all work in Big Sky. What the businesses self-report and estimate is that about 7,400 of those employees are working within the BizRad boundary. And then the coolest piece of this data is the seasonal estimates. And so we can see that the businesses self-report and estimate that 4,300 of that 7,400 is seasonal employees. And so this is really the first time we've been able to whittle that away specifically for the community. And I'm really excited to be able to say that we have this data. And you can kind of see just these general pie charts over here. It's nice, we can separate it out by Gallatin and Madison County, and we can separate it out based on industry also. And then, so more than about a little over half of the workforce is seasonal, but that's a really big and important thing to understand, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, more about that as a community as we go on. So in the love of pie graphs, I also plotted this by industry, so you can see this is, I just want to note that this title is wrong. I caught it kind of at the last minute. It should be employee by industry. So it's plotting, this is showing how many employees are within this industry. The top, this is hotel, lodge, resort. This is club, HOA there. And then orange is construction, and then you have two tied for fourth place here, which is retail and, boy, I had it, hold on. Retail and nonprofits. So kind of fun facts for you. And then, so right now, the report that I'm wrapping up is the economic impact analysis. And this is gonna be super fun. If you, it's a good thing Brad thinks I'm smart because I'm definitely not funny, I'll tell you what. So if you wanna come back and learn more about data, at some point in the next month or two, we'll be talking more about the economic impact report that we're doing. And I go through and we look at property taxes, we look at gas taxes, we look at lodging taxes, resort taxes. We basically look at where are all of your taxes going, to what government they're going to, how are they coming back into the community. And then we also look at the economic impacts of all the industry that's happening in Big Sky. And so in economics, basically there's a concept where when you spend $1, it multiplies itself, right? So when you go to the grocery store and you pay $1 at the grocery store, they take their employee, they pay their employee their wages, that employee takes their wages and goes and buys a pizza, and that dollar circulates throughout the community and creates more economic activity. And so we went in and estimated what that economic activity is for Big Sky. And we broke it down in 3 main categories. So we looked at resident spending, we looked at tourism spending, and then we looked at construction spending. And so the direct impacts here are that initial spend of your dollar. So that's the initial spending. The indirect and induced impacts are the multiplied impacts of that, and that's the estimated amount, right? So how is that growing as it circulates throughout the community? And then that total gross impact are these two added together. So that's the total gross impact can be equated to what you might call your global GDP. And so that's the estimated GDP of Big Sky. However, what we see in economics too is that some of that economic impact stays locally, and then some of it the rest of the state gets to benefit from. Because you're not sourcing you may or may not source your lumber from the county itself. You might source it from, I don't know, Great Falls or somewhere else. And so Then the gross county impact here is the estimated economic impact that stays within our 2-county area. So that is what you would consider county GDP. So we can compare that to the GDP numbers that we have for Gallatin and Madison counties. And then the employment benefits are basically the estimated number of jobs that all of this economic activity touches, right? So it is, yes, it's okay, you go to the grocery store and they pay the cashier, but it's also, well, the demand of your services, you demanding lumber requires Kenyon Noble to hire another lumberyard manager. And so, but for the economic activity in Big Sky, they wouldn't be hiring another lumberyard manager. And so that's what employment benefits are, is estimating how many jobs that all of this economic activity touches. So there's some really wowzer points to take away from this. The first is that this employment number here is 32% of this labor, the 2-county labor force. That's crazy. So, maybe a quick stat, if you want to seem really smart to your friends, you can say 1 in 5 jobs in the 2-county area is touched by the economic activity in Big Sky. And then the other thing that's really crazy is this county GDP is about 14% of the 2-county total. So this is the 2-county GDP, and that this gross county impact is 14% of that, which is outrageous because then the last point is this total gross impact, similar to the global GDP. Well, that's 4% of the statewide GDP. So I told you we were going to bookend it. All of that is done on a community that is 3% of the population of the 2-county area. So we bookended it with 3%, but all that to say that the economic power and the economic engine that is Big Sky is really impressive and really important to our region. And I think that we need to be talking about how important all of the things that you guys are doing and all the hard work that you're contributing to community has impacts on all of Gallatin County and all of Madison County. Okay, that's my presentation for tonight. I think, I don't know, I have no idea how long that took. Do we have time for Q&A? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? I'll repeat the question. All right, I see your hand there.
So when you're taking into account Gallatin County, does that account student body out of MSU, demographic?
If they filled out the census as a permanent resident. So that'll vary, but if they're living independently of their parents.
Back to your slide.
Well, I didn't repeat that question, sorry. I'll do, well, there's also online, so I'll do better at repeating the question. Sorry, go ahead.
Back to your slide on the people coming into Big Sky per day, the 2,000 people. It looked like you would, right there, it looks like you're not including the Yellowstone Club in the clubs. This is the CDP.
Yeah, so the question was on this slide, is this number including Yellowstone Club in the clubs? And the answer is no, because we're understanding the limitations of our data, right? And they're only estimating it for this boundary, and because you can almost see it here with the little streets and stuff, because the CDP excludes Yellowstone Club from some of that estimates, then no, it does not. Mm-hmm.
So that number's a lot bigger.
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about in economics is knowing your bias too. Is it biased under or is it biased higher, right? And one of the things we would say is this is actually an underestimate of the people that are coming in and employed because it is not capturing Yellowstone Club.
I think that's...
David, did you have a question?
On the last slide you had up, when we were talking about the economic impact countywide, and jobs benefits and such like that, that doesn't take into account anything that happens outside like the airport, for example.
The question was, does this jobs number, this 26,000, take into account activity that's happening outside of Big Sky, such as the airport and stuff like that? Technically it should, because there are specific multipliers that are used, and you actually break down your spending by industry. And so it should be capturing any kind of extra economic activity that is impacted by, or that's impacting the airport. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, David, what's your other question? I love questions, they're so fun.
David, from a housing perspective, one of our challenges when we look at the in-commute number is we don't have a great way to measure intent. So of that 73% of the workforce that commutes into Big Sky, it's difficult for us to know what their preference would be. How many of them are commuting because they have to? How many of them are commuting because their family's located outside and that's intentional? But that's a big part of the data point that we look to make decisions about need for housing within the community. And what we've depended on most, as you said, is surveys. And I couldn't echo that more when we fill out your surveys. But do you have any advice for us on better ways to estimate that intent?
Summarized. The question was from David with the Community Housing Trust, and so his question was one of the things that they're looking at a lot with their data, and specifically the in-commute, is the intent of people. Do they want to live in Big Sky, or do they want to commute? And how do you capture the intent of what people want to be doing? And David said that historically they've done that through surveys. And so that's actually interesting because it's an interesting conundrum. And we ran into that in the childcare space because we were wondering, do people want a childcare in Big Sky, or do they want a childcare in Gallatin Valley? And because do you prefer your child on this side of the pass with you, or this side of the canyon or the other side of the canyon? And we asked that question very specifically, and then we sorted it based on where people lived. And it was fascinating how it shook out. We found that in our surveys that people that lived in basically in any zip code not 59716, they preferred childcare in Gallatin Valley, which we thought we did not think that was going to be the answer, right? We thought you want your child on this side of the canyon with you. And then David asked if I have an idea of how to capture that and the intent, and I don't know, other than community surveys. I don't know how to capture that intent, but that's why community surveys are so important, because you're trying to estimate demand for housing in Big Sky, and if you build houses, will people buy them? But really, surveys are the only way to ask that. And even if the federal government was doing it, they're still doing it through a survey too. And so, there's census is a survey. So fill out your censuses, it's so important, because we get to find all this cool data. I wish I had a better answer, but now now as I drive home tonight, I'm gonna be thinking about this question, and I'll come back at you if I think of something creative. John?
Do our county and state policymakers have this information?
The question is, do our county and state policymakers have this information? What do you mean by which part of this does this information mean? This slide here?
I guess our outsized contribution to the county and state.
To some extent, yes, but we are going to be having these conversations to a fuller extent as we release the economic impact analysis. And part of why we did the economic impact analysis was we wanted to start this conversation. It hasn't really been quantified a lot before of what is the economic impact of Big Sky? And we know it's big, but how big is big? And so I did this teaser, if you're super nerds and attended the last Joint County Commission meeting, which was this October, I did basically this, a drive-by sweep of these numbers. And I know that Madison County Commissioner Ron and I walked away remembering the 4% of state GDP. He's got that number in his brain now. But we're gonna be having these conversations as a community to a greater extent throughout this next year.
I'll just add to your answer, Jackie, but John, we showed it to Lou Jones the state budget director, taking a look at it, as well as Lou Jones. So we're definitely, this message needs to get out.
And just to repeat that for those online that might be watching, we had this discussion with the state legislators when they were visiting Big Sky at they're in a MARA committee, and I can't remember what MARA stands for. It's
Me neither.
It's some sort of finance committee at the state level. And then we are also sending the draft preliminary economic impact analysis report to Lou Jones, who is a leader in the legislative body in Helena, and then Ryan Osmondson, who is the state budget director, for their review, and then we'll be releasing it further once we finalize it. Question here?
Would BizRad be the people to speak to about getting a survey to our actual employees? Because I know for my industry, the restaurant stuff, I get the survey as the employer, but the employees, I don't think they get those. I don't know how to get those questions to those people to get some of those answers. If you guys will print those, or if we can give them out by business, or who would be the folks to talk to get that?
The question was, how do we distribute surveys to employees in a larger way? I'm sure we could have a conversation if you wanted to partner with BizRad and what that might look like. But as a business owner, like I know we sent the childcare survey out to the chamber that then distributed it to businesses, and so maybe that's an ongoing conversation actually about how to better access employees to get the surveys to the employees. I think that's a great question, and I wondered that myself too. Like, how do you continue to distribute the survey in a more full way? And I think it's important that we think about that. And I mean, ultimately, this is just me. I speak for just myself, but in a dream world, I'd love an annual survey that would go out to the community that people just know and would fill out, and then we can collect some of this data year over year and actually say something about trends. But that's my data nerd brain. So maybe that's an ongoing conversation actually that we can have and brainstorm some with Brad about how to better distribute it to employees community-wide.
How in the future do we better include the clubs and the things that are left out of this data so that it represents what's really going on?
The question was, how do we better include the clubs in the data so we can better represent what was going on? That's a great question, and that's one we've been working on. And a lot of what we're starting to do is ask the state to start to build a specialized GIS map of the BizRad area. And so this is actually the population data. I really undersold it to you. This is brand spanking new data too, which is built specifically for BizRad. So before the state helped us with that GIS mapping, we only knew growth in that CDP area. But now we know growth in the BizRad boundary to the best of any data that's available at all. And so we're starting to do that. One of the things that we looked at for the economic impact analysis too is we had Department of Revenue build a special GIS map of properties within BizRad boundary. And so we're working towards that. It's a slow grind to make sure you're building all the layers of data that are accessible to that boundary, but slowly but surely we will get there. So.
Jackie, I just point out that the employment data from BizRad includes the Yellowstone Club.
Yeah.
So that 7,400 employees is resort tax boundary. And so you can extrapolate the census data against that 7,400 to get your estimate about the in-commuters. It's about 5,400 using that same number.
So the comment was just that this BizRad employment data does include the club, and it does include businesses that are registered and doing economic activity within the BizRad boundary. And so this data also includes that. And you can use census data to start to kind of extrapolate some stuff. So. Thanks, guys. Everyone's still awake. We did it.
the treats of working in Big Sky is we get to meet and work with some really, really smart people. And I want to thank Danny Bierschwell with Resort Tax that we now have one of the top experts in the state of Montana working just for Big Sky now, and that's Jackie. So thank you, Jackie, for everything that you do for our community. And the downside is now she gets voicemails from me or texts every day because I now can reach out to her. So let's go ahead and raise the screen up. Yes, that one. So next portion of this evening now is actually kind of taking some of this data and then let's kind of turn it into real life and what is happening in our community from a business perspective. And so what I'd like to do is first of all introduce our facilitator tonight. We've asked Kern Lum, and Kern Lum is a consultant based in Bozeman. Karen refers to herself as a business co-pilot. She supports leaders who are growing and elevating themselves and their organizations. She does this through business coaching, facilitated planning sessions, employee training, program development, and implementation. Karen spent a decade of her career as a leader at Moonlight Basin, and during that time was part of the Visit Big Sky Board of Directors. You may see Karen in town regularly as she works with many businesses and nonprofits in the Big Sky community, and we invited her tonight to moderate our panel because she knows firsthand what guides and what are meaningful conversations in our community. So she knows how to help us get to the heart of our work and our experiences. So please welcome Karen Lum, and she will introduce our panel this evening.
You tricked me, Brad. I thought we were having a break. It's all good. We passed out cards with the QR code. We're going to do, Karen's going to facilitate the Q&A for the panel as well. So if you scan this QR code, it will bring you to our platform to submit your questions.
Yes.
Yay, it's on. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Lum. We are going to have a lively discussion tonight with 4 leaders of small businesses in Big Sky. So we thought it would be nice to give everybody a chance to just hear the voices of some leaders that are working in small businesses, doing very hard work, building, sustaining teams, hear what some of their challenges are. We talked ahead of time before the panel. We had a chance to kind of vent some of the challenges that everyone already knows about. And although we may talk about those a little bit, we also encourage the panel to talk about the innovative things and creative steps that they're taking to build cultures that are healthy, to retain their employees, and to have success in their business. So I'm just letting you know up front that I promise we're not just going to sound like broken records and Groundhog's Day about all the things that everyone in this room and online already knows about. Okay, so I think we're all, if everybody who's on the panel just wants to come up, that would be great. And we'll make sure everybody's mics are working. Get started here. Okay, we're all here. Okay, so we have Kelly from the Hungry Moose, and we have Twist with Blue Buddha and Trace Toros, and now Blindside Burger. We have Danielle with Big Skyland Management, and then Andy with Cornerstone Management Services. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to do a little more of an introduction about themselves here as just a place to get warmed up and get started. So I would love, maybe we'll just start with you, Kelly. And if you don't mind sharing your role specifically, how long you've been in Big Sky. Yeah, you know, that's a good detail.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm Kelly. My mother and I are the very, very proud owners and operators of the Hungry Moose Market and Deli. I've been coming to Big Sky since before I could walk and living here more permanently the last 4 years, which I'm so grateful and so happy to be able to do, because one of the things that we've talked about and that you all know is that because we are such a young community in years, it means that we know that the things that we do every single day, every year, is having an impact on the community, and we are getting to create the community that we want to live in, and I think that is such an amazing opportunity. So that's why I am here living and working as an adult, and I'm so happy to be.
Nice. Great start, Kelly. Okay, what about you, Twist?
Hi, everyone. Twist Thompson. Originally from Colorado, and kind of came up through Summit County and watched Keystone and Breckenridge and Vail and all of those places in the I-70 corridor just get crazier and crazier and crazier, and then luckily stumbled upon Big Sky. Actually made a trip to Bozeman, and we were like, we should pop up the hill one day and take a look and go see what the ski town looks like, and just instant love. And we thought maybe we had 10 or 15 years before all that started to pop off, and it was significantly faster than that, which we all know. But it's been great, and it's really an honor to be part of an industry that I've been a part of for a long time and have a lot of passion in. So, yeah.
Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle Miller. I'm with Big Sky Land Management, and my husband started the company in 2005 with just a chainsaw. And I moved out here for college, 2005, moved to Big Sky full-time, 2007, and joined Justin in 2015. And so now I'm the general manager of Big Sky Land Management, and we do excavation and forestry around town. And yeah, excited to be up here. Thank you.
Andy Dreisbach, Cornerstone Management Services, a couple other companies. We got to Big Sky about 20 years ago, incorporated in 1985. Kind of been following resort towns throughout Pennsylvania, Colorado, Summit County, like Twist, and then Teton Valley, Idaho. Moved here 20 years ago. We've got 3 children that are all born and raised here, and just been loving it ever since.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a sense of who's up here. Let's make it even a little more interesting. So I would love for each of you to speak about approximate numbers of folks that you have on your staff. That'll give us a sense of the size of your businesses. So if you'll share how many employees approximately you have, if you know about how many are living in Big Sky versus elsewhere, and then will you also share if we really knew you, we would know that, and fill in the blank, because that's actually the most interesting question.
The Hungry Moose has about 65 employees. We house roughly 50% of those employees, and right now we have 2 people living in Bozeman and 1 person living in the Canyon. If you really knew me, you would know that I am a third culture kid, which means that you grew up most of your childhood living outside of your country, your parents' country of origin.
Love it, Kelly. That's good. Something intriguing. All right, Twist. What do you have for us?
We have about 50 employees between the 3 restaurants, but I consider Drunken Monk the 4th. It only has 1 employee, but you have to because it's a cool concept. But of those 50, I think that 90% of them live up here. We house probably 25 of them, so about half. And of those employees, most of them are year-round employees, so we have maybe 10% of that number is kind of rotating. So it's been pretty good for our culture. And if there was something that you wanted to know or probably didn't want to know about me, I love electronic music, and I dance to it like an absolute lunatic. And I'm glad that that is not what we're doing up here today.
I told you this question was going to be good. All right, Danielle.
Right now we have about 24 employees. Closer to the summer, we're hiring right now. We'll get to about 30 to 35. 8 employees live up here in Big Sky, and the rest live in Bozeman, Belgrade, Three Forks, and Ennis, and commute every day, which is a long commute. And I don't know if I could top that fact, but back in high school, I used to compete in freestyle mogul skiing, just like Johnny Mosley, and went to the Junior Olympics, and yeah, did that for a little while there until blew out my knee and, you know, ended the career, but got me out here. So pretty excited for that.
I'm definitely not topping that one. We got about 22 full-time employees here, but we have about 118 that show up every day for work through the subcontracting workforce. So through the differences that have developed over the years in construction, we've kind of inherited that group also with us. We have 22 bedrooms up here, 4 houses for employees that opt in. We've got about 33% of our workforce that do opt into that housing, and if not, then we supplement our subcontractors with that. So we have the remainder that commute from Bozeman, mostly by choice. So unique fact about myself, for my 21st birthday, I attended a John Denver concert with my parents.
Oh, good. We're going to have a sing-along in a little while.
Grandma's feather bed.
I like it. Okay. So I encourage, just since we have such a small panel, we really do have the opportunity with time to riff a little bit with each other. So feel like if someone brings something up as we continue to talk and you want to jump in or ask a question of each other, I'll support kind of monitoring time, but for the most part, I think we have time to do that a little bit as needed, okay? So the next question or topic that I would love to chat about is really about the culture of your businesses. So if you'd be willing, maybe we'll start with Andy and just go the other direction this time. Just willing to share a little bit about how you would describe the culture in your company, kind of where it comes from, right? Whether that's sharing a little bit about the values or just, you know, where it started. And then also, what are you doing actively to nurture it?
Okay. Our culture has definitely become more robust and healthy in the last 5 to 6 years. We had some pretty aggressive turnover in the hierarchy, which needed to happen. But as far as the demographic internally, it's a mixed bag of tricks for sure. There's a lot of pretty pieces of paper hanging on the wall that people aren't using, and so they've kind of migrated to the construction industry for various reasons. But I'd like to think that we've got a great culture. We really enjoy and embrace each other. We all come from different backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that we're not respectful of each other and enjoy each other's company. So, you know, from curling teams to softball teams to, you know, wellness benefits that we offer and things like that, golf outings that we force people to go to with each other and whatnot, you know, to try and kind of socialize. We like to do outings with each other to just try and bring the culture all together. So, as far as healthy and robust, I mean, it's construction industry, so we're all pretty much, we're a very young construction company too, and so fairly healthy, fairly active group. So they definitely enjoy their time off also. So.
Yeah, so creating opportunities for people to have time off.
Yeah, and encouraging them to do so. You know, we have a bobblehead program where, you know, if you go abroad, you're supposed to bring back a bobblehead or some nefarious little item from there, and you have to talk about it and then kind of share photos and things like that. And it's really turned into neat opportunities where they'll talk about industries where, you know, hey, they're doing this over here, or they're doing this here, or hey, I saw this in, you know, South America or Japan or Europe or wherever. And so they're able to bring that back, and we can grow from that and kind of better ourselves. So it's kind of a neat opportunity there. But it's just a neat little thing that we do, you know, like some crappy little magnet or whatever from some place that, you know, forces them to, you know, break that mold and get out of their comfort zone and kind of get up in front of everybody. So.
Right, yeah, to come back and share a little bit about their adventures.
Yeah, I mean, we do Friday morning breakfasts, so, you know, we'll have it catered and everybody gets together on Friday mornings. And, you know, it's wins and losses for the week, and then, you know, also things that they may have participated in, you know, outside of the workplace that they can enjoy and collaborate on, so.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for going first, Andy. What about you, Danielle?
I love the Friday morning breakfast. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
Food is important.
I'll be there next Friday. So Justin and I have always been work hard, play hard. And a good work-life balance is really important to us in the company. So being in construction, it's really easy to have a lot of fires and to feel like you have to work Saturdays, but we try really hard not to do that, to set some boundaries, get out of work early on a Friday afternoon, go home, enjoy your family time, get out and play in the snow. We have a lot of hunters, go out hunting. Just enjoy the outdoors. A lot of people moved out here for the outdoors. So don't work all the time, but when you are at work, work hard so that way you can, go play. And so one thing that we did a survey with our company this past winter, and a lot of the guys want more PTO time, so we're working on offering more benefits, and it's just a fine line with how can you offer more benefits, more PTO time, but still be competitive when bidding on jobs and not have your prices go too high. But we are definitely looking at increasing more PTO time, more holiday pays, sick days, and vacation time for our employees.
Great, thanks Danielle. What about you, Twist? How would you describe the culture of your restaurants?
We start every day with a meeting at 2 o'clock before we open, and we almost always open with just respect and communication. It's a really high stress, just very short amount of time where it goes from 0 to 60 and back to 0 in about 5 hours, and you're dealing with a lot of different personality types. And so we speak to respect inside of our restaurant community every day. And I think that goes a long way for everyone just realizing that inside of our circle, we're all equal. We're all an equal cog kind of in that machine. And I think that goes a long way for me to retain employees. They tend to stay with our restaurants longer than I've heard them staying with other spots in town. We're kind of all burnt under this crucible of service, the service industry, and that keeps us tight too. In past years, we used to take the whole crew to Mexico every year, which was fun, and they got us, make sure they dig me out of a ditch, and that's great for your restaurant culture too, because I guess any culture, because it just kind of equalizes everyone, and they see the boss get loose, and it's good. So that's been the best for our crew, is just respect, good communication, and take a breath and just kind of start each day ready to battle. And we come out of it and everybody has a beer and start over.
Nice. Okay, what about you, Kelly?
I would describe our culture as neighborly, friendly, reliable, supportive. Hopefully you guys feel that as customers, because we hope that culture is external and internal. And the way that we cultivate it, I think, is very similar to what you guys are saying. Is if our employees are going to feel like they are a part of this community and they want to be a part of supporting this community, then they need to know that we are supporting them and that we want them to be here enjoying the outdoors. We want them to be here enjoying the community events. So can we get you a ticket for the community events? When you have a birthday, you will get a gift certificate to a local restaurant. When you do something really great for your fellow mooser, or you did a really great job unloading the truck, or you went above and beyond for a customer, then we will reward you with moose bucks. And so that just means that you have some extra cash to spend at the moose as a thank you. And that's like a small thing, like a day-to-day thing to bring a smile to your face, feel like you're being noticed. But we really just try and, I think, treat people with respect and dignity, be active listeners, right? Like be really present with all of our employees. And so that you know that when you come in and you've got to go to 60 miles an hour at the après-ski rush time, and you're not going to stop for 5 hours running around the store, don't worry, we're going to check in with you. And you know what, tomorrow I'm going to make sure that I check in with you and make sure that you've actually booked that snowboarding lesson that you talked about, or whatever it may be. I think that there are some more like formal policies that we have in place as well for supporting childcare, having healthcare benefits, having a mental health reimbursement that we're really, really proud to offer. So there are things like that, but there's definitely a lot that we try and do in the day-to-day on the floor. And it definitely all starts with the interview with, is this person going to fit in this culture? They might not have the exact skills that we're looking for, but if they fit that culture, come on in, and we can train you up to do anything, and we'll work with you there and take it from there.
I like it. So Jackie was talking so much about how valuable data is, and there's some data in the world of leadership training and just workforce training that shows how important it is in contentment and happiness at work to feel seen and known by the people that you work with and for. And so a lot of the times when I'm working with leaders, that's a big piece that we're focused on, is how do we help? What can we do to contribute to our people feeling seen and known? And all of these examples, right? Whether it's adventures or having someone come back from a vacation and have an opportunity to share it, right? In a fun way, right? With other people. You can do the same thing with the following up about someone's time off, or what the things are that are really important to them, as well as I'm just thinking about holding regular meetings, right? Whether it's a huddle, a stand-up, whatever it is, creating structure and opportunities for people to show up, ask questions, hear from their leadership, know kind of how they're lined out for the day. All those things can really support, right? In addition to benefits, obviously. I'm curious.
Except I will say the farthest I think we've ever taken our employees is to Yellowstone National Park, so Mexico's a little...
I know, Mexico's a nice goal. I like it.
It's herding cats, don't even start.
It sounds really good. Talk to me a little bit about the leaders that you have on your team besides yourselves, like how you're caring for them, how you're training them, how you're motivating them. Anybody, I'm not necessarily saying everyone has to share if you don't feel moved, but I'm just wondering, for any of you that have supervisors or leaders, other people that you're relying on to guide your team, what are the things you're doing to set them up for success?
I can speak to that real quickly. I have a number of concepts, and a bunch of those concepts are either now co-owned by ex-managers, or they have some kind of buy-in into the new concepts. And for me, that's been a big one, because there's only so far you can go in a lot of industries, and obviously ownership is, at the top of those. So for me, I like to, if someone's shining, try to get a hold of that person and see if they're interested in it, and see if they're the right fit, and then try to move forward and help those folks realize their dream if they want to stay in this insane industry, and be a part of the next thing, which is great, because it takes your culture and it brings that to the next one, and it automatically inserts it, and helps that individual kind of have that growth step, and really just keeps folks motivated to have something bigger and better on the horizon that then becomes theirs, and then that hard work that they've learned is now on their shoulders, and then they can look back and maybe appreciate all the hard work that went into getting them to that place, because then they can do that again.
Great, like true ownership mentality right there, opportunities for that. Yeah, any other thoughts about how you're motivating or setting your leaders up for success?
Yeah, I mean, we try to placate to their strengths, and quite often they don't know them. And so we'll go through surveys and evaluate personalities, things like that, and then point out some strengths that they might not know that they had. Or, take a degree that they may have had and then show them a way, and especially if they can champion that program where they can come on board. We've done a couple of capstone projects through MSU, and we've brought on a couple of engineers in-house now, and now they're taking the engineering department. We're asking them, hey, where do you want to take this? Where can you go with this? Show me what you can do. We've got, marketing, robust marketing. My goal has always been, as an owner of the company, I wanted my coworkers to feel the same way I did. And that's really hard, because, you live it 24/7, 365. And it's like my mom said, when you own a company, you don't work 9 to 5, you work 5 to 9. And so in order for them to feel that, we've recently entertained breaking out shares in the company, and then having them vest into the company so that they can actually have ownership in the company. Everybody has a say. We have morning meetings every day. We go over wins and losses, how we're going to pivot for the day, what we're anticipating. So we really want to have their voices heard. And we're now creating a program where people are like subject matter experts, and so that they can feel that ownership in themselves, and then they'll put on clinics and classes and follow-ups and doing standard operating procedures and things like that. So that they're really taking ownership of it, so that it's not just I'm showing up 9 to 5. So that's really what we're trying to create in our culture, because our job sucks. So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard work for sure. Yeah. Okay, I love that. Lots of good ways to motivate. Yeah. Other thoughts on this?
We focus a lot on training. So we attended your managing with a coaching approach. And then doing one-on-one coaching. We have a book club. Last month in Leadership Big Sky, we talked about mindset, and we've all been reading that book for mindset. So it's small little things like that, focusing on the strengths that the individuals have, and then what we can do to help foster their growth in their career. And we've taken a lot of young guys too and helped grow them. We have a very young workforce as well, and so there's a lot of opportunity, and they'll be here for a long time, so might as well focus on training, and then we'll all grow together.
Yeah, and training is a huge investment, right, of time and sometimes money, and so you really want to do what you can to retain these humans that you've now given them new skills. You want them to stay and do good things. Yeah. Kelly, any thoughts on this one?
There's a lot that I want to say because I feel like each of our managers has something different that we are trying to work with them on. So, for instance, we have a manager who has children, and so we try and support her there so that she can have more of a flexible schedule. She can work more from home when she needs to. Same thing that we were talking about. We have, for our folks who live in Bozeman, sort of working with them on their schedule and their commute, and just sort of making it like, as long as you are taking ownership of the job, getting the job done, then absolutely, like, let's figure it out. And then I think my mom is really great about sort of the training and the continuing education piece. She'll send our managers on sort of wine education adventures.
I'm liking this.
Which
Mexico and wine.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And I think that yes, of course, the hope there is that then folks want to come back and use that knowledge at the Moose, but at the same time, if this is just sort of something that then you take and you have been launched by the Moose, then that is great as well. So I think just sort of like letting go of that piece has been important for my mom and I. Like, all right, we would love for this to be for the benefit of the Moose, but if it's not, that's all right. Like, we've developed a great relationship with you, and we want you to know that we support what you are passionate about. And that I think has really helped. And I should probably stop there before I then go through all the rest of our managers. I do want to say, though, we have had varying success with using bonuses, with using monetary bonuses for our management team. I think that really does motivate some of our managers, but it does not motivate all of our managers. For our other managers, it might be they just want to know that they can take an extra week off or something else. So that, I think, has been interesting to navigate.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think there's a huge opportunity to do more in onboarding to make sure we're asking those kinds of questions about what people are actually motivated by, remembering that they're not always motivated by the same things we are, either as owners or as leaders, right? Just depends on lifestyle and age, and there's lots of things that impact what people are motivated by. So that's a good point. Some people are all about a bonus, and other people would rather have something else. So you got to ask, yeah. Let's talk about challenges. We promised our audience that we would not belabor the challenges too much, but I think the theme that we want to take on this, or the approach that we want to take, is even though the challenges that we're facing in this community for all of you and everyone else living here, and especially those that own businesses, right? All of these challenges are real, and also you're still standing. Like, you're running businesses every day that are working, and, yeah, that's right. That's right. So sometimes we can get caught up in, these big challenges that are going to take a while to solve. But ultimately, if each one of you would think about a challenge that you face, like something that's real, that you deal with in your business on a regular basis, that is definitely not easy, but then also some of the ways that you have found to navigate it. So this is less about what's perfect and more about, this is a real challenge, and here are the things that we're doing in our business every day to combat it, to overcome it, to be healthy and thriving despite it, right? So that's what I'd love to talk about next. And we don't have to go in order, so if anybody feels moved to start.
You may,
Prime the pump.
You're up, Andy.
I might have to steal some of what you say.
No worry, it's all good. So quite often, part of the challenges that we find is finding the integral personnel that we need here, especially in C-suite, positions. And so as we're onboarding people, we've purchased 4 houses here, and we offer bedrooms, $650 a bedroom for rent, to try and allow them to come here to get a feel of the community, to get a sense of it all, and then to allow them to get their feet wet before it's just like, hey, welcome on board, good luck, and try and have that communal feel and sensibility in that minor development itself. And so, that way, the hope and the intent is that, they come, they fall in love with it like we all did, and then go, okay, now it's time for me to, step out on my own. That's one thing that we've done. We've tried over the years to do, subdivisions for our personnel, and unfortunately, due to being, outgunned, and then weird circumstances, downturns of economy, et cetera, so forth, it's fallen through the cracks. But, just you got to keep trying. You can't just give up and go, oh, this is really hard. Yeah, duh. So, and that's where it's kind of that adapt and overcome mentality. I just found out the other day from my CFO that I was giving loans out for land, vehicles, other nefarious items, and
You mean to your employees?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they're interest-free loans, that are paid back, and he was like, dude, you can't do that. I'm like, oh shit, my bad. So got in trouble, got to pay the interest on it ourselves type thing. And so, but that's where we just try to continually be creative and think outside the box. We're not making the rules, we're just sitting down at the card table and getting, playing the cards we're dealt, so.
Yeah, fair enough. So how do you decide who's going to get these housing units? Is it based on my position, or if I'm new to the company, or like what are the criteria? Like, do you ever have people that are saying, man, I really wish I could get one of those, and there's not one for me?
We do, and so then they kind of fall into a waiting list, good grace periods, things like that, or if we are really going after somebody, then we'll try and make available for them. So in the beginning, it was, like I was trying to give away, housing to Sid the vet, type thing, and now she's like, damn, I wish I'd, taken advantage of that, because we weren't filling the bedrooms. But, now they're all filled, and so it's one of those things that's kind of as needed, and kind of evaluate that criterion to make it for them. We've also got housing in Belgrade, and we're looking at other property in Gateway, things like that. So kind of all depends on, because like I said, a lot of our coworkers, they like Bozeman. They like the culture. They like being able to go out. They like being separated from work. This is definitely a small community, small bubble. So they like to be able to go away and maybe not be so noticed. So kind of their call. But we like to work with them through anything that they have. So.
Okay, I love this. So investment in real estate, which is good for your business, and then also you're able to provide some housing for some of your people so they can be here and work here. And I love the idea of that it's not all here. Yeah. So some of the real estate is in Belgrade and other places. That's great. Okay, who wants to go next?
Employee retention is huge for us, but I wanted to try to think of something different. And, Jackie talked a lot about the economics, and really the national economy impacts Big Sky, because if people aren't coming here and buying real estate, I'm not going to have a job. And so we have to be very creative with what the services we have to offer. And being able to diversify and also go other places. We just completed a job up in Flathead Valley, and looking outside of Big Sky for forestry work. And of course we want to be here and do the work, but at the end of the day, if people aren't coming here to buy real estate, then they're not going to build houses, and we're in construction and we dig houses. So it's just keeping, I think the tourism really helps with that, and that's why I'm looking to be more involved with the community and with tourism, because when people come here on vacation, they fall in love with Big Sky, and then they want to buy a home here. So we'll see how this year goes. Thankfully, the snow is getting a lot better out there, and I think we're going to end the season really well. which hopefully helps with real estate, and more people want to come here and build homes.
Nice. Okay. Diversifying, thinking outside of Big Sky too, like whatever you need to do to keep your business healthy. Yeah. Twist, what about for you?
Kind of the same. The level of employee that we have, there's plenty of bartenders and servers out there, and not to say that we don't appreciate those guys, but the cooks and the positions that either need to have come in with training or that we need to train, those are the cats that we incentivize the most. Pay the highest amounts, offer the housing units that we do have to those guys first. And my vehicle, my second vehicle, is all of their backup vehicle. Little things that I can do just in my small little world to help them, we will do. We'll get the whole crew together if someone is moving, and get everybody to get together and do that. And but those particular hard to get employees are the ones that I really try to retain the most. And
Yeah, they're coming with really specialized skill sets that you have to have.
yeah, and the training, once you get them to that level, that's really hard to lose as well. So to really incentivize those guys to stick around is great.
Okay, awesome. What about for you, Kelly, at the Moose?
I'll highlight 2 challenges. Housing, and so we have almost a dozen condos, and we try our best to make it so that your housing can feel like a home and not a dorm, and so that you feel like you really can make a home here and be part of the community here. So that has been huge. And then I would say another challenge that we have is sort of similar to what you're saying, Danielle, in the sense that like we are connected to the national economy, and prices go up, and grocery prices and food prices go up, and that is something that's a little bit difficult to stomach sometimes. I don't want my customers paying an absurd amount for eggs, and yet eggs were really expensive for a while, right? And vacationers come here and they're like, I cannot believe I have to pay $3 for an avocado. And I'm like, well, we are in the Rocky Mountains in January. Well, we can talk about this later. So that is sort of something that, there was a lot of inflation last year and sort of staying, and it continues, but it's slowing down. But staying sort of on top of these constant weekly changes in products and prices, in availability of products and prices, when you want to make sure that you are reliable, you are affordable, you are accessible, that has been a challenge, and it's just sort of been a team effort, right, to stay on top of that, and sort of make sure it's in our system to be constantly checking prices, checking availability of products, of substitutes, of what do people need if you live here. And if you work at the Moose and you are not going to go to Costco to fill up your fridge, can you get what you need here with your employee food discount? And then if you live here, can you get what you need? And if you are vacationing here with a house of 10 people, can you get what you need? So those are the 2 challenges that I will highlight, and
Excellent.
how we are working around them.
And how you're working around them. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about successfully retaining employees. So when you think about the specific strategies that you're using to retain people, I feel like obviously this piece around housing is really important. Anything else that we haven't said yet? When you think about what you're doing as owners and leaders to, Kelly, you brought up a good point, right? That not everyone is going to stay forever. And so if you can remember that and know there's a certain percentage of your staff who you are going to make an investment in, hopefully while they're in a transactional relationship with you, getting a paycheck, they're also doing good things for your business. And eventually they're going to go somewhere else. And then some other folks that you're really hoping in particular are going to have longevity. Anything we haven't talked about yet that you're doing to keep folks?
Work trucks.
Work trucks.
All my guys want work trucks and just help driving the canyon every day. A lot of my workforce don't want to live up here in Big Sky. They're similar to Andy's. They like space. They like Three Forks where they can have a couple acres. And so they're driving the canyon, and the canyon is a hard drive to do every single day to work. So anything to make it easier for them has really gone a long way, which unfortunately has, I wish I could be investing in housing for all of our, crew, but it seems like right now they're more interested in a work truck and help with fuel. Love to pay them drive time, but that is extremely expensive. So we do a travel per diem, but work trucks.
Okay, that's a good one. Anything else we haven't talked about yet?
Ski passes.
Ski passes.
We throw them in, kind of a must now across the board for all the restaurants. It's almost being asked on the day that they're applying, to get a ski pass. Housing, everybody kind of knows now. They come in and they're like, you probably don't have housing, but do you have a ski pass? And yes, we can at least get you a ski pass.
Yes, okay. Gotta have that. What else?
So we have commuter vehicles that the group can get together with, and if they opt out of the commuter vehicle, then we can offer, dependent upon their position, stipend for commuting in their own vehicles, things like that. But then back to the ski pass, not everybody skis, so we did the wellness benefit, and that's where if you want to get a fly fishing license, or you want to buy a rifle for rifle season, or if you want a kayak or whatever, it's basically something that is personal to you. It's not like you're going out to buy, I like beer. No, that's not what that's for. This is for it's like a health benefit type thing. And then another thing is that, I've had a lot of coworkers come to me and say, well, I don't really see a future in this. I say, okay, well then what do you see a future in? I really, I'm interested in business. Okay, well then let's have you entertain, the business aspect of this business. Or I want to pursue my career in engineering. Okay, well let's get you to go back to school. We'll help you pay for your schooling to get your master's degree in engineering or whatever. And then how can we segue that in with what we are doing? Because there's so many aspects that we have and that we touch that a lot of people aren't aware of. And so that's where we'll really try and, cater to what they're thinking if it can, marry in with us. And so that's where we do like a quarterly performance bonus. So it really is reflective to them directly as to how they are performing. And then also if we see somebody who's aspiring through the ranks that they may not even know it, or we say, hey, look, you're doing great. And during that quarterly performance bonus, you have an evaluation. So it's, these are the areas that you're doing great in, that's great, but these are the areas we want to see you improve on. And so that way there's that culture. And that's the biggest thing for the retention, really. Because back to the point of, I don't know if you heard me before, our job sucks. But that's the culture, where it's like, hey, look, we're in the blood and mud together. We're in this together. And, if you really enjoy your coworkers and whatnot, you may not go out on weekends or evenings with them or whatever, but at least if you enjoy your time there with them and keeping that toxic environment away, I think that's paramount to the success.
Yeah, and I love that this is part of the benefit of being a smaller business. Frankly, you don't have as much bureaucracy, you don't have as many people that you need to get to know and understand, right? So if you can make sure that you're really understanding what your people are motivated by, asking them questions, and then to Andy's point, this piece around feedback, like believe it or not, it actually does help with retention for people to know that you're noticing what they're doing well, and even that you're willing to tell them what they could do better, so that because you see potential in them, right? So that's important. Okay, any other thoughts on that front? Anything else we're doing to retain people?
Ski passes, rec benefits. You want a softball team? Awesome. You got a softball team. We're going to support your softball team every game you have. You just started a new nonprofit. Amazing. We got hot chocolate at all of your ice skating events. We love it. You want to learn more about wine? Amazing. You want to learn more about flowers? Amazing. Yes. Like, what is it that you're passionate about? Let's make it happen. I think there is a lot of that, and everybody has said it. If I may, I think another piece of our retention that has been bubbling up more and more in the last year or so is really holding people accountable. I think we're learning more and more from our employees that they do want to work in an environment where they're being held accountable, and they don't want to feel like they are working so hard every single day and the person next to them isn't sort of somebody that we can all trust. or is living the values of the moose, right? And so this idea of, oh my gosh, we will absolutely say yes to everything all of the time and make sure that you get 10 hours of sleep every night and whatever, it's like now it's okay, you want to be part of a culture that sometimes says no or holds people accountable or puts people on an improvement plan, or lets them go when they might be stealing from the business or something. So I think that during the pandemic, that was not really, if I sorry, can talk about the pandemic.
You can talk about it.
That was just
it's okay.
like not really something we could talk about, was holding people accountable. You really, really couldn't. And now it's like, okay, people want to be a part of a place where they can feel proud of their work and their teammates' work.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because that's had to be an adjustment for leaders. Okay, we were at a point where I just need a warm body. There's only so many people to choose from, right? And now, although sometimes that's still a challenge, right? But making sure that you're not letting folks stay that are really low performing, that start to impact how everybody else feels about working on a team or being in a culture. So that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, I have one last question. I'm going to read it because it's a little long. Imagine a future state. I let them prepare for this question because it's a hard one. Imagine a future state where the Big Sky housing challenges, the labor market issues, and the rising cost of goods, they're solved. Just for a minute. Imagine a future state where all of that is solved and you get to wave a magic wand and change something other than those things. What would it be for each of you?
Mine's got to be connectivity. I would love to see this kind of segmented Big Sky connected in a better way. I would love to, once it's all built out and we're at critical mass and the canyon is built up, and et cetera, buses are cool, gondolas are way cooler. I'm sure it's on everybody's, the front of their minds, and I would love to see this community get behind something like that. And I know there's a lot of challenges to do something like that, but we have all these tiny little tidbits of space, and the roads are tight, and roundabouts are on the question, and these lights are coming in, and how do we solve all these problems? We solve them with a gondola, people. That's how we do it. Stops all the way up and down, all the way to the mountain. We are now the American Alps, and it just seems cool to me. So maybe pie in the sky, but I think that would be the coolest thing.
Hey, I love it. I told you have a magic wand, so I want you guys to go for it.
Well, let's just put a train in the canyon then.
I'm on it. That would be excellent.
Mine is the canyon, the transportation. It's not just, around Big Sky, but one accident in that canyon, it gets shut down, and everyone's stuck up here. The canyon's dangerous. It's scary. We have days that we probably could work up here, and we tell our guys to stay home because we're concerned about safety driving that canyon. There's a lot of people going through it every day, and there's been so much work that's happened in the canyon. It's better than it was 15, 20 years ago, but there's still a lot that can be done.
Okay, we got 2 more magic wands here.
A robust mental health support network for everybody in Big Sky. I think it is amazing to see employers support mental health. I'm very proud of the way that the Hungry Moose supports mental health, whether that be anxiety, depression, substance abuse. However, I know that for me and for some of my employees, they do not want their employer to be remotely involved in anything to do with their mental health. And I know that there are some things that it's just not appropriate for an employer to provide or be a part of. Having said that, your mental health affects everything that you do, and it's really tough to see your employees struggle and see that that when they reach out for help or support, it can sometimes be limited. So that is my wish.
My magic wand can fix all of these. 3 words, Big Sky County. Let's just cut to the chase. You know, I mean, one of the things that we could solve with that is our education. We could privatize this school. We could pay the teachers what they deserve to be, you know, here. So we're not limited. We've got an incredible IB program here, but unfortunately we're bound by parameters that are outside of our whim and way that we can't correct. We can't pay the teachers what they need to live here, to stay here, to be here, to educate our children appropriately. If we were to privatize the school, then we could pay them accordingly. They could stay here. There's ways to do it. You know, if you live in this district, then it's paid for. If you're out of this district and you want to attend here, then you just pay for it like a private school, like you would any other place. So there's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of programs. We looked into the gondola and tramway up the poop chute years ago. You know, had Lee Poole and the Simpkins and Tim Blixith and everybody sitting in a room as they got into a fist fight over it. But so, you know, a lot of these, you know, topics have come up. And, you know, I'd love to see them all come to the table again. Excuse me. So that's what we got.
Great. I love that. I almost skipped that question. I'm so glad I didn't. Okay, do we have any audience questions? I gotta read them on the whim. There's 10. Okay. How much time do we have? 15 minutes. Okay. Let's see here. Geez, everyone has to watch me while I read these.
First question, yes, we are hiring.
Us too.
Yes, please.
Is that the first
HungryMoose.com.
question? These aren't moving. What am I doing wrong? Oh, there they go. Okay, I see now. Let's see. What new business do you see as the biggest need for Big Sky?
A hotel. More hotels.
Another hotel.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many VRBOs here that's taking up a lot of housing. We need more hotels.
Anybody else have another answer for this? What new business do you see as the biggest need in Big Sky?
I think that my daughter Charlie Sue started a program that pairs students from this school with the community, because quite often we're sitting here struggling to import personnel to work at, you know, our places instead of just harnessing and capturing what we have here. And, you know, the kids that are born and raised here, they understand where we are. They understand what 40 degrees below out is. They understand, you know, what a 10,000 person weekend looks like. So instead of trying to import people that don't understand where we are, why don't we retain, you know, our most valuable asset, which are our kids?
I like it. Any other thoughts on that one?
Not on that one. Mine would be significantly more selfish. I think we need a nightclub sub-basement that turns up extremely loud, even if I'm the only one in there. That's what I would build.
Oh, you would not be the only one in there. Anything come to mind? What kind of business does Big Sky need that we don't have yet? At least thinking it over.
Well, I don't want somebody else to do it because I want to do it.
Oh, I see.
But
Well,
we
you
need
don't have to
soft
say it.
serve ice cream.
A soft serve ice cream shop. Yeah, maybe that does need to be part of the Hungry Moose. Okay. These are long questions.
Can I add to that last one real quick?
Add to it.
More stuff for the kids to do on any given day. I don't know exactly what that means, but I mean, I know that I've spoken with the movie theater, and I guess that big theater doesn't really generate all that much, and so that's got to be hard on that business. But that would be a tragedy to lose that. Bowling alley, I don't know, some putt-putt golf stuff, like just more stuff for kids to do. As much as we have this amazing mountain biking and this amazing skiing and snowboarding and all these different cool things, there are just some days, at least for our kid, where after we've done it 3 or 4 times in a week, we still want to hang out and do something. We just don't want to go in the woods again.
Right.
So, yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, these are so good. All right, next question. For the businesses affected by seasonality, how do you retain employees? So we've talked a little bit about retention, but the second half of this question is, how do you stay profitable during the lulls? So any thoughts that come to mind during seasonality? So during those lulls, how are you staying profitable and or how are you retaining employees?
Part of a program that we've recently started and are in the process of developing is continuing education training, where we'll send people away, you know, passive house in Texas, things like that, that they'll show an interest in. And then we'll also have it where it'll be classroom settings. Like today we had a training on how to, and then yesterday we also did, Joni brought cookies to the guys that were in there. And so it's really just trying to keep them, you know, motivated and captivated and continuing to learn so that they're not stagnant and dormant of, you know, like, oh God, yeah, another 3 months before we get to go back to work again, the faucet gets turned on. As far as profitable, I'm a really bad business guy, you know, because I think with, you know, my heartstrings instead of purse strings. And so a lot of that is just, you know, putting the employees first, so.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
We deal with it every year because we really only have like 4 months to dig here. And that's 8 months of slow time. So we are expanding our services down into Bozeman area where it's a little bit, the weather is a little bit easier to work with. And then we're also really looking at expanding training too, is trying to have training programs set. So if there's a snow day, we can still pay our guys to come into work and learn, because there's so much that they can learn in construction every single day. And so having that in your back pocket for those snow days, because a lot of our guys, they can't budget to take the entire winter off. So it's not so much about, I mean, it is a big part of the company staying profitable, but it's also our guys, or the people who are working for us, are having a hard time budgeting throughout the winter and making all their money in the summertime. So how can we help them be able to afford all of their bills in the winter time? And yeah, we're looking a lot into training too.
Okay, any other thoughts on this one? How you're managing during seasonality?
This is a really small thing, but we switched from, we used to do a lot of things at the end of the winter season and then at the end of the summer season, and we just sort of flipped it so that some of our cash flow is going out on an annual basis, right? So it's going out in December, January, when we're feeling a little healthier.
I see. Okay, so managing cash flow carefully, making shifts to things that you buy based on that.
Yeah, it sounds really small and maybe so
No.
obvious to all of you guys, but
No, I think that's a great one. That's really important. Sometimes just you're doing it and you don't realize, yes, that's something I'm doing that's helping us during slow season. Okay, we've talked about a lot of these, but maybe something else will pop when I read this. So what are ways that we can improve the lives of locals where the cost of living in Big Sky challenges their ability to participate in the local community, which seemingly is priced for the 1%? So what are ways we can improve the lives of locals where the cost of living in Big Sky challenges their ability to participate in the local community? So I feel like this question is asking us less just about what the business can do, right? And more about what the community can do.
I think anything that allows these folks to lay roots down here, and any avenue that we can give anybody, you know, the middle class folks, the ability to somehow lay some type of root, be it maybe start a new business, some help with that, obviously purchase a home or something, even land. But that's what I've seen from the really good employees that I have. That's what they want the most, is the ability to stay here long term, eventually raise a family here, and have a little bit of, you know, a little more space. So as much as I can do, but I think that would be a big one, a biggie.
Yeah, great.
There used to be programs in Summit County where it was, you know, like locals discount type thing, just little things. And, you know, 10% or at the end of a season, you know, a busy season. So you've got your October and your May type thing where it was, you know, buy one, get one free dinner type thing. And it's just all those little things that help out, you know, moose bucks, things like that, you know, we can do. And then philanthropically, anything that we can do to, enrich the community. We're trying to move the school out here in front over to Corral Ranch so that it can maintain part of its historical value and not just be bulldozed over and things like that, that really can speak to, what was Big Sky, because, we want that to be a really rich part of what Big Sky is going to become.
Okay, any other thoughts on that one? Okay, what is a resource or support that you wish your business had available to you? Besides a train or a gondola or a trip to Mexico in the near future. Any other resource or support that you wish your business had available to it?
I think the health services thing would be a big one. It's hard. It's taxing it's why our culture's been so good. I've found from my employees, they really, really like that I've just taken the time to just listen to them sometimes, and they have a place to vent. And you can't do that across 50 employees all the time and have any time for yourself. So I think some type of mental health service that was really easily accessible to them, someone they can just talk to, even if it isn't, anything specific to that they feel like they're going crazy or something. It's just a place to vent and just speak. Yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts?
I don't know if you all remember, but Jerry Scott, when he donated the land for the elementary school in Jackson Hole, they did a thing where if you have a new business that's coming into town, how many employees are coming into town? Oh, we're going to have 22 employees. No, not you. Not just Smith's grocery store, the gas station, the t-shirt shop, the coffee shop. How many? 32. Okay, here's a chunk of land. It's yours. Once you build 32 affordable housing units and you get your C of O, you can put a shovel in the ground for this. And so to have a jump start like that for small businesses that are quite often struggling to survive here ourselves, if we did have some philanthropy that was put forth where we did have the opportunity for a piece of land for us to help our coworkers put those, grassroots down, I think that would be paramount. Because, to go out and buy a $20 million lot and then start to go to work and spend money, it's like, man, I'm done. So.
I got kind of a weird one, but it's gravel. Believe it or not, I don't think many people know, but the Big Sky gravel pit, they're not producing gravel anymore. They stopped 4 or 5 years ago. So our closest gravel pit is Gallatin Gateway, and that's only going to last for a couple more years. And gravel is expensive. And it's not actually gravel that's expensive, it's the trucking to get the gravel up here, and you need gravel to build everything. And so it's one of those mentalities that, like, I don't want any rules when building my house, but once my house is here, my neighbor can't do anything. And I think we just have to have a little bit of an open mind that in today's society that gravel pits aren't bad. We have a lot of really great people in our community that are very thoughtful on how they approach it and how they process gravel and how they give back. So they're being environmentally friendly, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it can help keep the pricing low in construction.
Great. Any other last thoughts?
I just have a question on that. Is there a lot of gravel leaving town that could be stored up here somewhere and placed that can be kind of flipped? I'm sure that there's trucks full of dirt going back down that canyon too.
Yeah, if anyone wants a free berm, just let me know, and I'd be happy to build one for you. We've done a few in the town for the area, but it's, yes, hauling dirt out of Big Sky is probably more expensive than the gravel, and so sometimes I call myself a dirt hustler. I'm always looking for places to find, who wants some dirt work done. Sometimes we can reuse the dirt into a road. I've done that before. It really depends. But berms are great, and we can make them look really pretty and put some trees on them and everything. So.
Okay, I just feel like leaving on the note of Dirt Hustler feels really solid for the night. Danielle, I can always count on you. So I feel like we're at our time. I just want to tell you all that even just from our prep conversations that we had last week and being up here with you, just a pleasure to hear from all of you and hopefully give some voice to the work that you're doing with your people and how you're a part of making this community healthy and thriving. So thanks for being willing to take the time to be here.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to the Chamber for putting this
thank
on.
you.
It's a great opportunity.
Thank you,
for
everybody.
these guys.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Jackie, tonight. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Just a couple things just to note. Thank you, John Zirkle and the team here at WAMPAC for hosting us tonight. We appreciate that. And this has been recorded, so if you want to follow up or look at the recording later, you're welcome to do so. I want to thank the Chamber staff, too. Thank you, Fallon and Bethany and Ashley and our team for putting this together. So thank you so much. Drive safe. Have a great evening.